the floor to His Excellency Ranil Wickremasinghe, President of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka. You have the floor.
Your Excellency, Mr. Macky Sall, President of Senegal, Your Excellency, Mr. Ulf Kristersson, Prime Minister of Sweden, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. The current progress of the SDG is globally unsatisfactory. Only 12% of the targets are on track, while we have not made any progress in 30% of the other targets. We have discussed the scaling up of actions to ensure the acceleration of the SDG progress. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which includes the 17 SDGs, was adopted by the United Nations member states in 2015. Around the same time, in 2015, the Paris Agreement was adopted by 196 countries at COP21. Thus, we had two highly progressive, responsive, and far-reaching programs, but extremely limited resources dedicated to their success. When the global pandemic struck in 2020, it meant that these programs suffered further setbacks. There was no economic growth, and many sectors saw the absence of any economic activity. The already limited resources were further constricted. The pandemic also aggravated the pre-existing global debt crisis, and many countries, including mine, have faced bankruptcy. The question now raised is whether SDGs are even attainable in the current scenario. Take the example of Sri Lanka. In 2019, we estimate that 9% of our GDP would have to be invested to achieve these targets. Following the pandemic and the economic crisis, this is now not realistic. The Climate Prosperity Plan of Sri Lanka requires US $26.5 billion to be implemented before 2030. But where can countries such as mine find such funding? Sri Lanka's sovereign debt crisis has resulted in little or no fiscal space to channel scarce public funds towards these priority spending areas. In 2022, the debt service cost was equivalent to 151% of the government revenue that year. This situation is become evident in most parts of Asia and Africa. Today, even countries which have been spared bankruptcy are struggling. The G20 summit reiterated that developing countries require financing up to $5.9 trillion by 2030 to fulfill their nationally determined contributions. A further $4 trillion per year is required for clean energy technology to achieve the net zero emission by 2050. Given the unprecedented financial calamity affecting most of our countries,
Mr. President, I'm sorry.
As to whether these figures are realistic and what can be done to ameliorate the situation. The Paris Summit for New Global Financing Pact will assist us in evaluating our financial targets. At that stage, we have to determine what actions are we to take.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Sorry for that.